By now, you have probably heard the story that Coca-Cola invented Santa Claus, or at least that they decided on his iconic red outfit. But like most things on the internet, this is not entirely true. The truth is actually way more interesting. To say that Coke invented Santa Claus, or even invented Santa Claus Red, is a huge oversimplification. The truth is, Coca-Cola did not invent Santa Claus, or the color red that he is so famous for. They did something better. They convinced the whole world that they did. See, St. Nicholas was actually a real person, and variations on Christmassy figures exist across European history dating all the way back to the 4th century. The OG Saint Nick was a Greek-Turkish saint who liked to secretly give gifts to people in need. He was also the patron saint of children, which makes sense that now today's Santa is a character for the kiddos. But then there was Father Christmas, representing the spirit of good cheer, Sinterklaas on his huge white horse, and Krampus, a half-demon who punishes bad kids, just to name a few. Now, by and large, those Coca-Cola trademarks, chubby, jolly, red coat, the white fur trim, and the beard, is tied directly to how corporations slowly took over Christmas in general. Now, before we start off this video, I have a confession to make. My grandpa was Santa Claus. He actually performed as a Christmas Santa Claus for like 10 years. It's not actually related to the video or the script, it's just a flex. Christmas time is the Super Bowl of consumerism, and that is not a mistake. What was once a holiday built around community, charity, and generosity has devolved into the time of the year where you spend way more money than you have to make sure that nobody gets mad at you.
This whole planet runs on greed.
Giving presents at Christmas time is not actually a Christian tradition. It stems back to the pagan holiday of Saturnalia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but apparently this is where people took time off work, partied, exchanged gifts, and generally made chaos. The holiday sounds great, and it was based around the solstice, the longest night of the year, on December 21st. When gifts were exchanged, they were modest and handmade. Fruits, nuts, sweets, and books were commonly gifted, as well as handmade toys. Elaborate items had to be made by craftsmen at the time and weren't really an option for most people. That is, of course, until the Industrial Revolution, when factories began pumping out large volumes of items that everybody could buy. These were lower quality, but way more accessible, and there was a ton of variety of things to choose from all of a sudden. This marked a whole shift in our consumerist world, of course. Suddenly people could own several of a particular item, and that made buying gifts for people a lot more viable for a lot more people. Apparently, the story of A Christmas Carol, you know, the one where Scrooge ends up succumbing to the Christmas cheer and gives back in charitable ways to his community, contributed to the whole gift-giving culture that goes around this time of year.
Humbug.
Because see, at this time, the culture of holiday shopping was just being kind of developed, and along with it, the image of Santa Claus as its mascot. There was this guy named James Edgar who was an entrepreneur. Apparently, he often greeted customers while dressed up as various child-friendly characters, a sea captain, a clown, even George Washington. The one year that he dressed up as a clown during the holidays, it kind of turned into a thing because the next year he started dressing like a plump, jolly old elf. And what do you know but a red suit? Things, of course, have ballooned from there, and we have the Macy's Day Parade to prove that. As a Canadian, I don't understand the whole thing, but I know that it's a big deal. Macy's did not miss the opportunity to include Santa in all these celebrations. He's been in the parade since the very beginning in the 1920s, and for some people, that parade marks the beginning of the Christmas season. Meanwhile, I'm just here watching for the crazy balloon accidents. And if you want to see us react and break down more videos on the internet relating to brands and companies that you see mentioned online and in the real world, you can check out our podcast that we have over on Patreon. You can get a taster for what this podcast is kind of like over on our Clips channel. That will be linked down in the description. And you can subscribe to that channel as well to see new content as we release it. Santa Claus and his red outfit were not created by Coca-Cola. However, if you ask a random person on the street what company they guess created Santa, you know which one they would say. So how did Coke get themselves into the position, and why? Well, it turns out that it's pretty hard to sell an ice-cold soda pop when it's cold outside. To maximize sales, they needed a marketing campaign specific to winter. And what gives better vibes than Holiday Daddy that brings you the presents and good cheer? Coke sells an experience, not a drink. Family, togetherness, joy, magic. And that is exactly what Santa gives. It is literally just Coke's good luck that Macy's and these other companies had already been dressing him in Coca-Cola Red for the last few decades, and they could just slip in and take advantage. And this is the craziest part. Because Santa is just a figure that evolved out of humanity's collective lore, he's not copyrighted. Coke doesn't have to pay anyone to use arguably the most iconic figure in human history for their marketing. Even more crazy is that now they have cemented themselves as the Santa Claus brand. Anytime his image is portrayed in movies and TV shows and parades and whatnot, there is a subconscious connection to their drinks. The only people who Coca-Cola has to pay when it comes to Santa are the artists who draw him for the ads. And paying artists is good, and I actually don't want Santa to be copyrighted, but it does seem a little crazy that a corporation as enormous as Coca-Cola gets a handout like Santa Claus. Now, we got to give some credit to Coke here, because they did help develop the Santa Claus image in their own way to their own advantage. In 1931, Coke hired an oil painter named Haddon Sundblom to make Santa Claus advertisements. Sundblom was inspired by two other artists of the day, Clement Moore, who wrote the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas and All Through the House," you know the one, and Thomas Nast, who did illustrations for Harper's Weekly and had been drawing these similar looking Santas for years. Sundblom's ads went out, and they went all out. They went out in the Saturday Evening Post, the New Yorker, National Geographic, you name it. Coke ran annual ads using the same Santas painted by Sundblom for, I kid you not, 33 years. Even after Sundblom's death in the 70s, Coke still makes ads in the same style, which kind of seems like a weird and stingy thing for a company that could probably buy the moon if they wanted to market on it. But there is an interesting reason behind it that we're gonna get to later. See, the Coke Claus story is just the perfect manifestation of the work smart, not hard mentality. There isn't a Mad Men brainstorming session that could have produced an idea as long-lasting and as seamless as their takeover of an already beloved icon. This is the same thing as companies paying massive superstars to represent their products, except Santa doesn't have a tweet from 10 years ago that will cancel him, and remember, they don't have to pay him a cent. To illustrate just how firmly Coke has this image in their back pocket, let's look at some of the other attempts of corporate America to try and replicate their work. In 1996, M&M's started their iconic Fainting commercial series, also featuring a classic Moore and Nast inspired Santa Claus, of course. Like Coke, M&M's has kept their ads pretty much the same year over year, but I didn't honestly even kind of remember it until I saw it in the script, so it can't be that important because I didn't remember it, and the world revolves around my lived experience. Duh. Pepsi, of course, has tried a few things, including a Christmas can series and this honestly insane commercial featuring the modern trend of cold plunging. Props to Pepsi for trying, I guess, but all of their attempts are just kind of embarrassing to watch. Santa holding a blue can just looks wrong, doesn't it? Last year, they partnered with Lindsay Lohan to try and make Pilk happen.
That is one dirty soda, Santa.
I don't care how much you love a White Russian, Pilk is never gonna happen, folks. Calling it right now. Santa Claus has also been used by other companies and brands over the years, notably was a cigarette company selling Dirty Darrells, which is fun. And the thing is that this image hasn't always been used to just push a product. Nast, who was one of those original Santa artists, was a political cartoonist in the time of the Civil War. He was using Santa Claus in literal pro-war propaganda. Men signing up for conscription with Santa framing war, or peace, as a gift to the nation. But despite all of the other people trying to play the Santa Claus games, Santa is now more synonymous with Coca-Cola than rum is. In the 90s, this was probably the peak of the Santa-Coke connection, and their marketing push has really never relented since then in order to maintain the position on top. New Coca-Cola ads include those polar bears, characters like Sprite Boy, which is lame, and huge shticks like the Coke truck. Now, their aesthetic is super consistent across everything, and it's very recognizable. And what they're always trying to do is sell that emotional experience of family, joy, togetherness, that magic, right? And it works. Some people say that Christmas hasn't started until they've seen the Coke ads. Coke is so successful at building this emotional attachment that in blind taste tests, people prefer Pepsi. But then when they see the cans, they will choose to drink a Coke, even though they think that Pepsi tastes better. If that's not a definition of a toxic relationship, I don't know what is. Now, by now, we have seen this same style of Santa in Coke ads every year for almost a bloody century. That Santa is literally the oldest guy I know. And as we have stated, it was not originality, innovation, or even Coca-Cola Red that let Coke steal Santa Claus. It was sheer repetition. He is, and I quote, one of the most enduring brand images ever to have been created. It's so ingrained that it feels natural, so you know Santa drinking pilk is never gonna happen. Nowadays, Coke is keeping it fresh for all the streaming youths of today with short Hallmark Christmas films, which I'd rather shoot myself than watch. And it's clearly working, because even in the modern era of global distress and cynicism, or maybe because of the, cynicism and stress of today, people find comfort in the holidays. And through all these things, Coca-Cola has just landed themselves on the coattails of this holiday spirit. And now all they need to do in order to maintain their position is remind us every year that they're the company selling us that comfort. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more content like this, remember to subscribe, and happy holidays, y'all.